All right, so they have one more slide here on home bias. It's just an exercise that I'll put on the next problem set. But what it asks you to show is just that trade costs function in a similar way to preferences. So we said home bias can be explained by high trade cost. It can also be explained by people just preferring goods that are made in their home country, which is somewhat related to a point made by Paul Krugman actually in a paper in the early 80s, where he said that if there's a good that people in one particular country really like relative to other places in the world, then that good's production will often be in that home country. So if we kind of take that point of view and then take a look at this omega here, which is less than 1, this says that people in home prefer the good that home is endowed with and prefer less the good that foreign is endowed with. So I'll have you take a look at that in your next homework. That's all. All right, so here's the question. Where should you invest? Well, obviously you should invest in the place where the return is the highest, conditional on the risk of the investment. And it doesn't matter if it's in your own country, if it's in a foreign country. You should always invest in the place where the return is the highest. It doesn't matter where you live. All right, so if we take that to an extreme, if people are being rational, then it shouldn't matter. The place where the investment should be high as a fraction of GDP should be places where there's a lot of growth opportunity. And it shouldn't matter whether that particular country is saving a lot of its national income. Okay, so we shouldn't expect to see any sort of correlation between savings and investment. But it turns out that, now these are, this is from 1990 to 1997. So we're comparing here investments with national savings, and what we see is that in this regression here, beta is kind of like the correlation, and you see that there's quite a significant correlation between national savings and investment. It's not quite correlation, right? So it's essentially the covariance of I divided by y and ns divided by y normalized by the variance of ns divided by y. It's almost this is what that beta is. But anyway, you can see that it's related to this covariance. So there is quite a bit of covariance here in these two measures. All right, so trade costs are a very direct way to help out explaining home bias in tradable goods. If it costs a lot of money to buy goods from abroad, well, of course you're going to buy a lot more goods at home. So that one's not so surprising, but it's not so clear how that's going to help with investment, right? We're talking about trade costs in terms of goods, not in terms of capital. So capital in the real world, and also in the models we're going to look at, we're going to assume that it flows freely. So capital is going to ignore barriers. So here's the intuition. Imagine you've got a very small country, maybe Denmark. It can't change foreign prices. Whatever Denmark does in its own country domestically, it's not going to have any effect on foreign prices. Now let's suppose that it's a big lender. So if Denmark is lending, that means it's going to export its home product today, and it's going to import it back tomorrow. Okay. So due to trade costs, that means that since it can't affect the price, right? The price of the good it's exporting is fixed. It's stuck abroad. The only thing is, when they sell it abroad, they have to sell it with trade costs. So it means that every time they ship one unit, only less than one unit arrives, which means that the cost or the price of that good is going to be low today, and it's going to be high tomorrow. So we'll have to make that more precise in a minute. But if you think about that, if the price is high today and lower tomorrow, that means that, if the price is low today and high tomorrow, that's like inflation, which erodes the rate of return. So when Denmark is lending, it's receiving a low rate of return. Okay, and then we can use the same argument going the opposite direction, to say that if Denmark's borrowing, so suppose that it wants to import a lot today and then export tomorrow, that's a way of borrowing, right? That's going to cause deflation, which is going to increase the rate of return. So it means when it's borrowing, it faces a high rate of return. If it's lending, it faces a low rate of return. So basically, investing abroad isn't very attractive. You'd rather just invest at home. Okay, so getting to the model, suppose we've got a 2-period, 2-good, small endowment economy. Okay, it's the same as before, except for now we only have one country. We're going to try to keep the notation similar. Suppose we've got a representative household, and utility looks like this. So there's 2 periods now. There's consumption in period 1 and consumption in period 2. Consumption in period 2, utility is discounted. Okay, and we'll assume that in each day, consumption or utility is going to be given by a combination of the home good, home endowment good, and some foreign good, which can be imported. All right, so we're going to have 2 subscripts then. We're going to have, say, CH1. That's going to be consumption of the home good in time period 1, and CH2 will be consumption of the home good in period 2. CF1, foreign good period 1, and CF2, consumption of the foreign good in period 2. Okay.